Your silence after his rejection is killing him, you see. When someone rejects you, especially a man, he thinks he's in control. He believes he made the final move. He thinks you're the one who'll now obsess, overanalyze, and wait for some breadcrumb of attention. But what he doesn't expect, what shakes him at his core, is your silence. That moment you don't chase. That moment you don't send a message to clarify things. That moment you don't try to convince him to change his mind. That silence, that's not weakness, that's power, and remembered in REMEMBER strength. It forces him to sit with the decision he made. Not just the words he said, but the weight of what he let go. Because silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the presence of self-worth. It says, I heard your no, and I respect myself too much to beg for a maybe. While he thought he was closing a door, you were already building a better one. And now he's thinking, replaying, wondering, why isn't she reaching out? Did she really walk away that easily? Was I wrong? Your silence doesn't scream, it echoes. And if he had any doubts, if there was even a flicker of interest still burning, your silence is the wind that fans the flame, or reminds him of the warmth he lost, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence is often misunderstood. People assume that if you're quiet after a rejection, it's because you're hurting too much to respond, or you're unsure of what to say. But true silence, the intentional kind, isn't born from confusion or weakness. It's born from clarity and strength. Choosing not to respond after someone rejects you isn't about playing games. It's about preserving your dignity. It's about knowing your value so deeply that you don't feel the need to chase after someone who couldn't see it in the first place. When someone tells you that you're not what they're looking for, it can sting. Rejection always bruises the ego, no matter how confident you are. But in that moment, you have a choice. Try to convince them to see your worth, or honor yourself by stepping back. The latter takes more strength than most people realize, because the natural instinct is to defend yourself, to prove you're lovable, to ask for clarification. But silence says, I don't need to be explained to, your decision is enough. Most people underestimate the power of not reacting. When you're silent, you're not giving away your emotional energy. You're not sending follow-up messages, hoping they'll reconsider. You're not trying to keep the door open just a crack. You're showing that their no doesn't derail your sense of self-worth. That you don't crumble because someone couldn't see what you bring to the table. In fact, when you go quiet, it often does the exact opposite of what the other person expected. Especially in dating dynamics, when a man rejects a woman, there's often an unspoken assumption that she'll linger, that she'll be around if he changes his mind. He might not even do it out of arrogance. It's just a pattern he's seen or experienced before. But when she doesn't reach out, doesn't check in, doesn't just want to talk, it disrupts the entire narrative. Suddenly, he has to sit with the silence, and that silence becomes loud, deafening even. It's in that stillness where your power multiplies, because silence isn't just the lack of words, it's a reflection of your emotional discipline. It communicates confidence, boundaries, and self-assurance. It doesn't plead for attention. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't need closure. It simply says, I heard you and I accept your decision, but I won't diminish myself trying to change your mind. People can sense when you're truly grounded in yourself. And silence is one of the strongest indicators of that. It means you're not afraid of space. You're not afraid of what comes next. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're letting go. And ironically, that's when many start to wonder if they made a mistake. Because your silence doesn't just show you're strong, it shows you have options. It shows you believe in your value so completely, you won't waste time trying to be chosen by someone who already passed you up. When a man rejects you, consciously or not, there's often an expectation baked into that moment. He believes you'll linger. Not necessarily because he thinks you're desperate, but because he assumes he has the final say. In many dating dynamics, especially where emotional maturity is lacking, men are conditioned to expect that after they pull away, the woman will still be there. She might text later, try to maintain a friendship, or reach out under the guise of just checking in. He assumes he'll remain the prize, even after turning you down. This belief isn't always rooted in arrogance. Sometimes it comes from past experiences. Perhaps he's had women chase him after rejection, or maybe he's simply been told through cultural messages that his withdrawal will only increase your desire for him. So when you don't react that way, when you don't play the expected role of the emotionally affected woman hoping for another chance, it throws him off. Deeply, what he doesn't expect is silence. Complete, confident, unbothered silence. No emotional outburst. No draw, no closure conversation. No carefully written message trying to just be honest or express how you feel. You simply disappear. And that, in itself, is louder than anything you could say. It confuses him at first. He wonders if you really took the rejection that well. Maybe you didn't care that much. Maybe he misread the entire situation. Or maybe, and this is what begins to really eat at him, you actually had the strength to walk away the moment you saw you weren't being chosen. That thought alone can plant a seed of doubt in his mind. Was he too quick to let go? Did he misjudge your value? Was he expecting someone to chase him when in fact he should have been chasing you? Men often expect pursuit after rejection because of how attention works as a form of validation. If you keep giving attention after he's rejected you, he feels desired, he feels powerful, he feels like he still has access to you emotionally, even if he's closed the door romantically. It's a subtle kind of emotional leverage that gives him the upper hand without him even having to try. But when you deny him that, when you take your energy, your presence, your conversation, and your attention with you, that power dynamic collapses. In the absence of your pursuit, the emotional energy shifts. You're not orbiting around him anymore. You're not validating his choice by staying close. You're showing him that once someone removes themselves from your story, you don't pause the plot. You keep writing it. That lack of pursuit is shocking to a man who expected to be followed, and sometimes that shock triggers reflection. It pushes him to reconsider what he walked away from, because the absence of your energy is no longer comfortable, it's noticeable. It makes him realize that your presence wasn't a given, it was a gift. One he thought he could decline without consequence. And now, your silence is the consequence. In every interaction, especially romantic ones, there's a subtle dynamic playing out. Who holds the emotional control? Who's reacting and who's directing the tone? When you're rejected, it can feel like you've lost that control completely. After all, the other person made the final call. They ended the possibility of something more. But what most people don't realize is that how you respond in that moment can completely shift the narrative. Many people believe they need to say something after being rejected to protect their pride, to be polite, to ask why, or to get clarity. But the truth is, once someone has expressed their disinterest, you're under no obligation to give them more of your emotional energy. In fact, by staying silent, you make a quiet but powerful statement. You don't need to be chosen to feel valuable. You don't need to chase an explanation or force a connection that isn't there. You're strong enough to let someone walk away without trying to control how they see you. And that's where the shift happens. The moment you choose silence, you stop reacting. You stop performing for someone who already made their choice. You take back the power that may have momentarily felt taken from you. And this power doesn't come from anger or bitterness. It comes from self-respect. From a deep inner knowing that says, I am not going to fight to prove my worth to someone who couldn't see it. When you don't react emotionally, when you don't spiral into pleading or over-explaining, you send a clear message that you're in control of yourself. And more than that, you're in control of your story. You're not letting someone else's decision define your self-image or your next move. This is where emotional maturity and grounded confidence shine the brightest, because anyone can react impulsively. Anyone can try to fix or explain things, but not everyone has the discipline to walk away quietly and carry themselves with grace. That kind of composure is powerful. It unsettles the other person because it's not what they usually see. They're used to people wanting closure, chasing clarity, or keeping some thread of communication alive. But when you remove yourself completely from the interaction, when you don't reach out, don't post emotionally, don't throw jabs, it sends a message that you trust life to move you forward. You're not stuck in this one rejection. You're not defined by one person's inability to see your value. Even more, it lets you reclaim the narrative in your own mind. Instead of replaying what you should have said or done, you're able to detach, reflect, and grow. You're not trying to fix the story because you've realized you are not the problem. You don't have to rewrite the past to feel worthy. You only have to keep moving forward in your truth. So while it may feel like you lost control when you were rejected, your response determines whether you stay in that story or rise above it. In silence, that's not surrender, that's strategy, that's power. Absence creates curiosity in a way that words never could. When you go silent after someone rejects you, especially if they expected you to linger or seek further connection, it disrupts everything they assumed would happen. People often think that if they step back or say they're not interested, the other person will keep showing up, if only subtly, liking their posts, watching their stories, sending that casual "how are you" text weeks later. But when you disappear completely, when your presence is suddenly missing, it creates a vacuum that begs to be noticed. Human psychology is wired to notice what's missing. We don't always appreciate something while it's in front of us, because we assume it will always be there. The comfort of consistent attention becomes background noise. But once it's gone, once that attention, affection, and interest vanishes without drama, it triggers something far more intense than any words ever could: curiosity. He starts wondering why you haven't reached out. Was she more detached than I thought? Did she actually mean it when she said she respected herself too much to chase? Is she already talking to someone else? Those questions multiply in the silence. And because there's no new information to analyze, no messages, no reactions, no signs of emotional attachment, his mind has only one place to go: you. This isn't about playing games or using reverse psychology. This is about understanding the natural pull of mystery. When someone has full access to you even after they've rejected you, they have no reason to think twice. They know you're still there. But when you remove your energy entirely, it sends a subconscious message that maybe they miscalculated. Maybe you weren't waiting around after all. That mystery becomes magnetic. Your absence forces them to confront what they lost without you trying to remind them of it. When someone expects you to continue orbiting them and you don't, it challenges their assumptions. Were you really as into them as they thought? Did they miss something deeper about you? Were they too quick to judge? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, what is she doing now that doesn't include me? That curiosity can grow into regret if there was any part of him that still saw potential with you. But even if it doesn't, even if he never comes back around, the fact remains: your absence shifted the dynamic. You're no longer the one being evaluated. Now you're the one being thought about. He's left with only his memories of you, and the silence becomes the frame that holds those memories in place. It gives them weight. It gives them meaning. We're drawn to what we can't access easily. That's not manipulation, that's human nature. And your silence after a rejection is a powerful form of self-protection and self-expression. It says, without words, that your presence was a privilege, not a guarantee. And now that it's gone, its absence speaks volumes. When someone rejects you, it can feel like time freezes. It's as if all your plans, hopes, or imagined possibilities come to a sudden halt. But the truth is, what you do after that moment is what defines your growth. While the other person may think you're waiting in the background, hoping for them to come around or reconsider, your silence tells a completely different story. It's not a pause, it's a pivot. It's a decision to invest your energy inward, not outward. And while they're possibly wondering what you're doing, or if you're still thinking about them, you're evolving. You're not waiting, you're growing. There's a huge difference between holding space for someone and putting your life on hold. The former is compassionate, the latter is self-sabotage. When you choose silence after rejection, you're choosing to redirect your attention. Instead of feeding someone who's already made it clear they don't want to build with you, you start feeding yourself. Your goals, your confidence, your passions, your peace. The beauty of silence is that it creates space, and space is where transformation happens. You start to see more clearly what you deserve. You reflect, not from a place of lack, but from a place of self-awareness. Maybe you realize the relationship wasn't aligned after all. Maybe you notice where you compromise too much. Maybe you begin to connect deeper with your values. That kind of inner work isn't just healing, it's empowering. And the silence gives you the breathing room to do it without noise or distraction. Meanwhile, they might assume that you're just there, waiting, staying still. That's often what people think when someone doesn't react. They assume you're stuck. But what they can't see is that silence isn't stillness. It's movement they're not privy to. You're not texting, not calling, not explaining, but you're changing. You're becoming. Every day you choose not to break your silence. You're reinforcing your own worth. You're saying, I matter more than this moment. And while they're possibly replaying the last conversation, checking your social media, or wondering why you haven't reached out, you're creating something more valuable, momentum. You're developing your sense of direction again. You're rediscovering how full life can feel without the emotional drain of uncertainty. You begin to attract better, not just in relationships, but in how you treat yourself. And from that place, you begin to build stronger boundaries, clearer desires, and healthier connections. Your silence is not about them, it's about you. It's a quiet revolution. A reminder to yourself that being chosen isn't the prize choosing yourself is. While they might be curious about your absence, you're becoming comfortable in your presence. That's the real shift. That's the real win. So no, you're not waiting. You're not hoping for breadcrumbs. You're not secretly checking your phone. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't settle for a half-hearted maybe. You're growing into someone who only accepts a full, certain, unapologetic yes. Thank you.